Exciting episode today. I love these kind of episodes where I get to sit down with somebody that I haven't had a chance in the past to get to know, but I have other people that sit with me that are really good friends and go, you really have to know this guy. And I'm like, why do I have to know this guy? And they're like, you're really going to get along and you're going to be friends. And I'm like, so you fucking say. But every single time that happens, it ends up happening exactly the way that friend of mine said it was going to happen. So fingers crossed that's what happens today.
Hey everybody, I'm Eric Obrempt and you're listening to Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. We talk about real shit, what's on our minds, and don't give a fuck if it makes you feel a little uncomfortable. So sit back, strap in, and get ready for some real shit.
If you're serious about getting your time back and scaling your business, then SMA Support Services is your secret weapon. I use SMA for all of our support and admin tasks. Everything from back office management, day-to-day admin, even a call center. Their team frees up my staff to stay focused on high-level, revenue-generating activities. And that, let me tell you, is a fucking game changer. SMA isn't just support. They're a partner that keeps our operations running smooth and efficiently. So if you want to focus on growing your business and leave the support work to the pros, hit up SMA Support Services. Jim Ziminski, thank you for being here today.
Eric, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this will be fun.
You got to turn the heat up though, man. We're down in San Antonio and it's like, what, 20 degrees out?
Dude, so last night I get into this house and I go to bed. I'm exhausted, right? Because I got up at 3 o'clock to fly out of Omaha because flying out of Omaha sucks. So I get here and I go to bed. I didn't realize that they had the thermostat programmed. So like in the middle of the night, like the heat basically just turned off.
Turns off, yeah.
Yes. And so I woke up like freezing, and you heard the wind blowing last night.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Like I thought the house was blowing away. Like shit was flying around down the alley, and I had to literally do I was living in a hut and I had to cover my head up with the cover so that I could sleep. It's so fucking cold here.
That's insane.
And I came from Nebraska. It was -20 when I left.
Wow.
I was looking forward to, some weather.
No doubt.
So,
I was in Pennsylvania skiing this weekend.
Oh, were you?
It was nasty.
So
great snow, but
there's a phrase I've never heard from anybody. I was out in Pennsylvania skiing.
Yeah. Well, I live in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
And then we have a little ski house in Western Pennsylvania.
Okay.
About 3 hours away.
Really?
Yeah.
And there's good skiing out there.
Yeah. I mean, it's not phenomenal, but we're right in the mountains, so it's fun. And my girls can learn to ski there and everything. So it's fun.
So you're in Columbus.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we got introduced or connected through Joe Hoffman. And I actually, right before this, I was out on the floor at IRE and went and found him and we were talking and whatever. And I was like, I'm meeting with Jim in a little bit. And I was like, I know you told me that I really need to know Jim. I was like, but I don't know what the fuck to talk to Jim about. Right? Like I kind of know what you do, but I kind of don't know what you do. Joe kind of knows what you do, but kind of, you know what I mean? Like that was the conversation, but he started telling me a little bit more about kind of how you operate. And then I got really fucking excited, and I'm going to foreshadow a little bit.
Okay.
And then I want to go back to like, let you tell everybody like who you are and what you do. But how he explained you to me is that every decision that you make now in the capacity that you work in now is based on culture.
I would say that's pretty accurate. Yeah.
And that hit me really hard because of the things that I talk about and the things that I teach. And my group is called the Culture Movement, right? Like everything that we do is about teaching culture in companies, and making sure that we're working on our people and we're not only worrying about numbers and processes and systems. All that shit's important, but if we're not focusing on the people too, none of it means anything, right? So anyway, foreshadow. We'll come back to that. But that got me excited. That got me even more excited to have this conversation. So tell everybody who you are, where you got started, and where you are now.
Yeah. So Jim Ziminski, I started in this business in '85, believe it or not, in Windows. I was a window salesman. I met a guy at a fraternity car wash in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And next thing you know, I'm working for this window manufacturer selling windows in upstate New York.
Okay.
Seasonal. And cut my teeth in that for the first 12 years of my career. Great Lakes Window, if you ever heard of them. And so I was selling through somewhat through wholesale distribution, but predominantly direct to big home improvement dealers in the northeast part of the country. And I looked at that time, I don't look like that anymore, but I looked like I was about 18 years old. And all of a sudden, I'm with all these egomaniac guys in home improvement that are just driving BMWs and all the cars back of the 80s, and trying to teach them how to sell windows and how to generate leads, how to close in the home, how to market, all these things. And I learned very quickly they don't really listen to someone younger because you hadn't done it, right?
Sure.
And so what I started to do was I would be out in like Buffalo, New York, and some guy would be having success, and I would help him have even more, right? And I'd go to the guy in Boston the next week, and I'd be like, hey, here's a way that you could do something to sell more windows. Well, what's happened? I go, I don't know. I got this guy out in Buffalo, man. He's killing it. And then, of course, what's he doing? And all of a sudden, they were open to my ideas and my thoughts that I knew were working because they weren't my own. I was sharing success stories from others. So I did that for a number of years. Did not want to move to Toledo, Ohio, where they were based. Ended up with Certainty Corporation in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, near where I grew up. Was in the corporate world for about 3 years. I think that's my lifespan, Eric. I think after 3 years, I'm like, I got to get out of here. I feel like I'm choking to death,
That's how a lot of people are with women.
Yeah,
like 3 years.
Yeah, I was 3 years with corporate. Yeah, and so I got out, and this small group called Crane had a business called Vipco, Vinyl Improvement Products Company, a vinyl siding company. Yeah. And they're like, hey, man, we need someone to come out and be VP of sales and marketing and ultimately become president of this business. And that was really enticing. And I knew the brand. It wasn't very successful or well thought of.
That was the Crane board siding?
Yeah, I invented Crane board.
I remember that.
The name and all those things. And that's really what helped us turn the company around. And, it's sometimes,
because that was the original foam back. Is that right?
That's correct. Okay. And what's interesting is we did a focus group when I got there, and we were called Vipco. And I was like, man, we got to remake this thing quick. We changed it to Crane siding because Crane had a better name. Mm-hmm. And we did a focus group with consumers. We showed all these vinyl sidings on 4x6 panels, and we showed Hardy cement, and we showed this yet to be named product, which is now Crane board. And what we found was people did not like vinyl siding.
Right.
I used to joke, it's like going to Denny's. You don't go to Denny's, you end up at Denny's. You don't aspire for vinyl siding, it ends up on your house.
Right.
And we were selling millions of squares of vinyl siding, and I'm hearing all these consumers say, I hate this stuff. They look at this other product and they liked it because it was wider. It didn't look like vinyl siding. It looked like cedar siding, right? And they liked it. But then when we took it off and showed them a piece of it, which was vinyl with foam on the back, they're like, oh, that's vinyl siding. It has packaging foam on the back. And I realized right then and there, two things. Number one, we cannot call this vinyl siding because people don't like vinyl siding.
Right.
And we have to market it as opposite of vinyl siding as possible. So that's how Crane board was born. The number one product in the market was Hardy board.
Right.
So we called it Crane board, and all the samples, all the anything we did, we would go to our marketing group and say, hey, how would a vinyl siding company do it? We want to do it 180 degrees different. And we built a brand around that. And because of my home improvement background with these dealers from Windows, I knew how to call on those guys. I knew how to teach my sales team how to call on them, how to help them generate leads, and how to make money in a business that they hadn't made money at in years called siding. And so that really turned the company around. We became known as the innovator of the industry rather quickly, and it was a really fun run.
Are they still around?
They are still around.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, they sold to Royal Building Products, so they're part of Royal Building Products.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there still a Crane board line?
There still is a Crane board line.
Okay. All right. I just hadn't seen it in a while, but I remember when it came out.
Yeah, it's part of Royal Building Products, which is part of Westlake Chemical.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, they're massive.
Yeah, because then they just buy Da Vinci?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the head of Da Vinci used to work for me at siding. Paul Burleson, if you know him, the trainer. Oh, really? He worked for me. The head of VP of marketing and sales there worked for me. So they all came from Crane. It's something I'm really proud of.
That's really cool.
These guys stayed in the business and did well.
You're like the Andy Reid of...
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. A little thinner, hopefully.
Yes, yeah. But, less cheeseburgers.
Yeah. But they actually... I know Andy Reid because I grew up outside of Philly, so I was pretty happy this year when he lost to the Eagles.
Cool. I'm a Chiefs guy, so
okay.
I mean, that was a tough one.
But yeah, so what happened was we ended up selling the siding company because it became so successful, and we were all like brilliant back in 06, 07, and then the downturn, and all of a sudden the Crane family realized, you know what, we're very tied up in building materials. and real estate. We need to diversify our portfolio. And I was like, I think he should sell us because we've really made this thing pretty good.
Yeah.
And vinyl siding had reached the top of its bell curve. It was on its way down. And so we ultimately went through a process and sold the business. And I loved it. I mean, I was, down in Manhattan on Wall Street, and you're talking to these guys and trying to sell. I love the process. That's where I first got introduced to private equity.
Okay.
And in fact, the people we're partnered with now, we'll get into that later. I met him through that process 15 years ago. And we became friends and stayed in contact all these years, trying to always work a deal. And never
Isn't it interesting how relationships play out?
It's crazy.
Sometimes, you know what I mean? Like come back. Like I was talking to somebody about this the other night. I was like, just don't burn bridges. Like even 100%. When you want to fucking burn a bridge, like you want to burn it down, don't burn the bridge because you don't know what's going to happen in 5, 10, 15 years. That person might need you. You might need 100%. That person. Like figure out how to not burn bridges. Like somebody's always going to piss us off. Yeah. You know what I mean? But like, I mean, I'm proof of that. Like there's been numerous times that something bad happened and I'm just like, it happened. Yep. That's fine. We're not going to work together right now, but we'll see what happens in 5 years down the road. They're like, man, I really need you.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, that happened to me when I was selling Great Lakes windows, right? I go down into the mid-Atlantic region and I start taking all the best window dealers direct. They were buying through a distributor, right? And I'm just taking their lunch money, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And lo and behold, a year later, I joined Certainty Corporation as the head of sales for Wolverine. And who's my biggest customer? One of them is the distributor that I took all their customers from.
Oh shit.
And so you're like, oh no, but what I learned was they respected me because they knew, man, this guy got our best guys.
Right.
And man, he's on our team now.
Right.
And so we developed a tight bond.
And my assumption is you did it the right way.
Exactly.
Probably,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And you know, it's crazy. Fast forward to this past December, we just did a deal with the really great partners up in Maine, James and Whitney. They're phenomenal retailers. And I'm talking to these guys and they're like, hey, we have these advisors in the industry that we use. And I go, really? That's interesting. Who do you use? He mentions the guys' names. Literally my running buddies from 35 years ago.
Really?
And I told my partner, I said, this deal's done. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, I'm telling you, it's done deal. These guys are going to find out, how we operate and what my history is and all that. And it worked out and it's awesome.
That's cool. And so fast forward to what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Cause I'm interested in that because I knew nothing about it.
Yep.
3 years ago, 4 years ago. And now I'm going out to California next week and speaking at an event about some things.
Yeah.
And so I want to hear more about this and why you're in it.
So what I saw through that private equity group, when we sold siding, we did not sell the private equity, we sold the strategic, right?
Okay.
At that time, Georgia Gulf, who then sold to Westlake Chemical. I wanted to be part of private equity. Some of my team did not because they wanted to cash out, get their money and go. You sell public, you get your money and it's over.
Right.
You sell the private equity, you have to reinvest usually 25% or sometimes more of what you get back in, but then they want you to grow. And they're like, Jim, who can you buy? Well, I had two other buddies in the siding industry that I was going to acquire. We were going to build a bigger, conglomerate of siding and do some really cool stuff. It just didn't work out that way. That wasn't who ended up buying the business. But that's when I was like, man, this private equity is fascinating because you don't only make money when you sell your business.
Right.
If you partner with the right people, you can make money again and again and again. And I was also on a panel with SRS when they started. They had all these roofing guys and they needed someone from a different industry. I was the siding expert. And I was on a board kind of with them. And they said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to buy these businesses. We're going to keep the local name, going to give them equity, and then we're going to sell it to another private equity firm and do it again. And they kind of gave us the blueprint. And I remember thinking to myself, man, that's so odd because like corporate America doesn't do that. They don't tell you exactly what they're going to do.
Right.
And Dan Tinker and Ron Ross were like, this is what we're going to do, telling all their suppliers. And SOB, didn't they do it?
Yeah.
17 years later, it's unbelievable. They built this business, sold it 3 times through private equity, then the Home Depot, and guys who have invested $10,000 a year for 15 years are worth $15 million.
Right.
It's an amazing story, and I saw that power of that, and I was like, this is starting to come to roofing, right? You could see it was happening. It happened in HVAC, electrical, some others. It was starting to come to roofing. And remember, because I was in the manufacturing world, a lot of my buddies were manufacturers. I was on boards and things with them. And a lot of my customers were distributors. So I knew all the big distributors like Michael Carver you were talking about earlier and people like that. And what I was hearing from them was frustration about private equity. And the reason I was hearing frustration was a lot of early private equity, they'd buy like 10 guys, right? And what would happen is, you know, you're the owner, you get a bunch of money, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm out of here, man. I'm on my boat.
Right.
And your people that built the business are like, hey, what about me, Eric? You got $10 million. What do I get?
Right.
And they were leaving and starting their own company. So these manufacturers and distributors are like, how is this like helping us? Like our best customers are oftentimes going backwards.
Right.
Or 10 of them are getting bought, right? And they're comparing pricing and they're going back to the distributor and manufacturer and like, hey, you're selling him at X,
right?
You're selling him at Y. If you don't rebate us the difference and do that for the last year, like in the next week, we're dropping you and going over here.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't adding value and they didn't like it, right? And I was listening to this and I'm like, if there's one thing I've done in my career, it's kind of be visionary and find the blue ocean, if you will. Did it in siding with this solid core product and all that and some other industries. And I'm like, there's a different way to do this. There's a different way to do this. If we can go out and find the subset of contractors who are what I always call curious. So if you and I are talking and you're curious, you want to learn. I want to learn about you, right? I want to hear why you do it a way and maybe you have a better way and I can learn.
Yeah.
But if I'm a big ego guy, I don't want to learn anything. I know it all.
Correct.
And you can't learn if you know it all.
Right.
And so we said, let's find the curious guys that really want to learn from one another.
Yeah.
Who really want to help their employees lift up and do better.
Right.
We'll find those guys. We'll work with manufacturers and distributors and say, look, we want to partner with you, not be adversarial.
Right.
And here's how we're going to do it. And if we can do that, we think we can carve out a niche that's not being played yet.
Yeah.
Private
I love when somebody brings up the title of my book. So my book's being released next month that I've been working on for a while. It's called Shut the Fuck Up and Listen. Because nobody listens anymore.
No.
Nobody sits in a room and like actually listens. They're usually waiting for that person to stop talking so that they can talk, so that somebody can think that they're smart.
Yep.
Instead of just like sitting there and like trying to absorb something so that they can take something away from it. So that's really interesting that you say that. I love that about anybody that has a self-awareness to know that, like, regardless of what you've accomplished in life, right? And you've obviously accomplished a lot of things, but you still go sit in a room and listen to other people and like want to learn about them.
Yeah. And so ultimately what I'm doing, I was speaking at Best of Success about how to successfully sell your business, right? And I was doing nothing other than just trying to tell guys, look, if you're going to sell your business, here's things to consider. Here's some of the games private equity plays. There's some dark side and there's some good. Here's things you should know. You've worked your whole life to build this business. You're probably only going to sell one business. Don't fuck it up. Do it the right way, right?
Right.
And so I was trying to educate folks on how to do it. And this guy comes up to me afterwards and he's like, hey, I did this in the flooring space with a group called Artisan Design Group. I bought a bunch and built them up to a couple $1 billion. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's you? And I knew who it was because I was part of ECA, as you know, ECA, right? And they're part of FEI, the flooring group, right? And I knew from the biggest flooring guy, he's like, someone's buying all the businesses up in flooring and putting them together. And I'm like, that's you? And he's like, yeah, I want to do this in roofing. And I said, well, guess what? I'm going to do this in roofing. We started talking and he's like, man, you know everybody in this industry. Everybody seems to say good things about you.
Yeah.
And I know all these private equity on this side. We started talking and we're like, you know what? We could do this independently, but I think we can go further, faster together. And so we partnered and formed this group, BZR, my partner, Mike Blumenfeld. So, and then instead of finding a business that wanted to sell and represent them, he's like, our story is so unique. You have a vision exactly for how this should work. I've kind of done this thing. You know everybody in the space. We're going to go out and interview private equity groups and see who fits our vision and wants to do it the way we want to do it. And of course, he knew a lot of them because he was in that space. I knew a number of them, but not as many as him. And we started interviewing them, and most all of them wanted in roofing. Almost like out of 12 that we talked to, everyone wanted in roofing.
Okay.
About 8 of them wanted to do business with us, but some of them are like, bring us a deal, we'll pay you a commission. And we're like, nah, we're not interested in that. We want to be the exclusive buy-side agent. And by the way, if we're going to ask owners to put 25% of what they get in, we want to put 25% of our success fees into ownership. And I also want to be able to stroke a personal check to invest in this thing and own shares. I want to look a guy in the eye or a gal and say, look, I own shares just like you, the same exact shares, not different class, not anything. We're both owners. In fact, I call you a partner. I don't call you we acquired you. You know?
Right.
And so I was important. And so they were like, great, Jim. And ultimately, Mark McFadden and CCMP, our partner, is the guy I met through siding. And when I was consulting with him on another roofing deal, when I told him I was going to do this, because I said there may be a conflict of interest, he's like, Jim, I've been trying to do something with you for 15 years. We want to be your partner. And we said, all right, we'll talk to you. And they walked away from the other deal to start from scratch with Mike and I. Oh, wow. And he said, we'll make you the CEO. You'll be the CEO. And I said, I don't want to be the CEO.
Right.
You know, I've already done this. At that time, I have 11-year-old twin daughters, and I have older children as well that may be a grandfather recently. And I'm like,
Congrats.
I don't want to. I know what it takes. It's a lot of work. We need a younger guy in there to do that, right? Because he looks like the future when we go to turn this thing, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, how about you're chairman of the board? I go, perfect. Because then I can do the acquisitions, and I have to live with everybody on the other side, and I could create the vision and do it. And I said, let's take our time. There's no rush to hire a CEO. I can act as that for the first year.
Yeah. So, and this is Omnia.
This is Omnia. And so we formed this group, Omnia Exterior Solutions. I called Joe Hoffman before we even had the group, and I said, Joe, hey, FYI, I'm putting a group together. And he's like, what? Which is very unconventional. You went, I just know Joe. And I'm like, Joe, I'm telling. He's like, are you serious? And he's like, I'm in. And I'm like, I'll just chill out. I'll do it. And literally, it's funny, but we kind of joke about it. But Joe and I got into this group with Wim Hof, you know, ice baths and all that crap.
Yeah.
I literally FaceTimed him from my ice bath in a snowstorm and said, dude, we got a deal. And he's like, yeah. You know, it was wild. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been awesome. He was our first one.
Yep.
And we have 11 groups now, 11 partners
11
in the group.
partners in the
a little
group.
over 300 million.
Okay.
We'll probably do 4 or 5 more this year.
Okay.
We slowed down a little bit because we want to integrate. So when you do this, it's important to not just buy a bunch of businesses.
Right.
It's important to buy like-minded businesses that want to do the same thing and lean in, but also you got to integrate some stuff. Like, so you got to have a centralized CRM.
That's got to be the hardest part,
ERP,
right?
Yeah. HR. Yes. And that's why we hired Jeff Kizzelbash to be our CEO, because he's done some of this stuff. He's awesome, dude. And he knows how to do this. And we assembled a team. It was unconventional because we hired our CFO before we hired our CEO. And the reason we hired our CFO was my partner, Mike, worked with this guy at Artisan Design Group. He was the CFO, took him from the start to $2 billion. And then they brought a new CEO in. And of course, you know what happens with the CEO. He brings a whole team in. And so Dan's like, I'm retired. And Mike's like, Dan, you got to talk to Jim. He's like, I'm golfing, man. He's like, just talk to him. And he talks to me. He calls Mike. He goes, I'm in. And he brought in the head HR person from there as well and his controller. So they had a massive experience. And then we did an exhaustive search to find the right CEO that could come into this model. And
you did.
And we found the right guy. And it was not easy because you think about it. This CEO is coming in. We've already created the brand. We've already brought 4 or 5 partners on. We already have kind of the marketing group that's behind it. We already have the CFO.
Right.
Like a lot of CEOs will be like, I want to do it all. And this guy is such a great guy and such confidence in himself that he's like, this is working great. Let's do this together and let me do this. And so he and I work really closely together. And, I give him the space to run the business. He's running it, right?
Yeah.
The day to day.
Yeah.
I'm bringing the members on and we talk weekly. We have a weekly call where we talk about strategy and what we should be doing. And,
so what makes Omnia a little bit different then?
I would say our biggest difference is that culture, right?
Yep.
We look for companies, again, that are, the best word is curious.
Yeah.
Like, again, you get 10 guys in a room, and guess what? They want to learn from one another.
Right.
They don't want to show off to one another, right?
Right.
So that's one thing. The other thing, all people who join Omnia, their shares that they own are the exact same shares that I own, that the private equity group owns, that every member owns. There's not different classes of shares. Some groups do that, The other thing we do is when we buy a business, we require the business owner has to reinvest 25% back into Omnia. Not an option.
Yep.
You can do more, but it has to be at least 25% because we want them to have skin in the game, to have a successful.
So basically you're paying them for 100% of their company, but then they're reinvesting and have 20%, 25% into Omnia.
Yes.
And then that's how they make money on the second sell
and it's not
whatever.
Omnia at their local level. It's Omnia corporate.
Right. On the whole thing.
Same shares. And
Yeah,
then
okay.
On top of that, we give each company a group of performance shares. So let's say, we gave you X million for your business. We may give you $500,000 or whatever it may be, or $1 million in performance shares that you can give out to your key managers.
Oh.
And then they own shares in it. And what's really cool is out of the 11 that we've done, I think it's 8 of them have said, hey, you gave me X amount of performance shares. I'd really like a bit more. Can I put some of my money into performance shares? And we've allowed them to do that to enhance the pool, to give even more to their members. So
that's cool.
We have over 200 shareholders in Omnia right now.
Oh, wow.
Which is super cool.
That's really cool.
Because I remember hearing Dan Tinker talk about SRS, and one of the things he's like, I'm super proud of is I've created over 500 millionaires in the business. And that's awesome. And so when you're talking to, I say guys because it's been all guys so far, but there's a woman running Joe's business now.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is when they come in, it's like they want to know, like, man, I made it, but can my people make it?
Right.
And we can tell them, like, here's how we've done it, right? Here's some people who have left their jobs at the local level and joined Omnia here.
Yeah.
And here's the amount of people who own shares in it, and anybody in your company, anybody can buy shares of Omnia as well on top of that.
Oh, that's really cool.
It's really cool.
You guys have a really cool model.
It's a very cool model. And it was one that I believed in and kind of was selling to the private equity firm. And what was cool was when we talked to CCMP, this particular, our partner.
CCMP is the private equity firm.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're like, yeah, that's how we do it. We give performance shares. We all own the same share.
So they're already on board.
We didn't have to convince them. It's like, that's what we do. And it was just so natural. The fit was like,
that's kind of unheard of, isn't it?
And what was my partner's like, Jim, you don't understand. Like when we talk to a lot of these other private equity firms, it's like we have to get with the investment committee, which is the owners and all, and we'll get back to you in a week or two. We talk to these guys and we're talking to the co-managing partners, the guy I known for 15 years. And he's like, yeah, we can do that. Or, yeah, we're not going to do that. Like we were just connected at the top.
Yeah.
Which is really awesome.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And what's cool is when our members, when we do, just say we're going to do a deal and we start the due diligence, we all fly out to their location and have a nice dinner and all that, get to know them. That's the nice dinner before the due diligence, colonoscopy for the next 60 days. But seriously, they meet the private equity guys and they want to hang out with them because they're cool guys.
Yeah,
and
nice.
So part of it is, and we've got actually a couple members from this, and I kid around, but I've been doing this a while, and when you're young, sometimes you got to work with assholes because you're building a career.
Yeah.
And, trust me, I had to work with plenty of them when I was first in the Northeast coming out of college. As you get older, you don't have to, and you're not gonna. And so I tell these guys, I go, like, we're not letting any assholes in the group because it'll spoil the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they trust that because I'm an owner and because I'm chairman that we're going to do that.
And that was literally what Joe told me.
Yeah, we have everybody gets along, you know. Everybody likes one another and we all want to help one another. If a guy's struggling in another market, instead of like, oh, he's dragging us down, it's like, let me fly out there.
How do we help him?
Fly his manager out to my location for 2 weeks or whatever.
Got it. Oh, wow. So it's
really cool.
Yeah. Hands on and care about all of the, it's not like, oh, well, they're sinking. That's fine. These guys will pick up the slack.
Yeah,
it's like, let's take care of them. That's really cool. I'm really interested in this, especially because of the culture standpoint, because I think that there's so many people that start having these conversations for the wrong reasons, especially people in my position, right, that own a company, and all they're doing is looking at the number.
That's right.
Right. All they're doing is looking at a number and like, ooh, I can cash out it. I can go get 8 million or 10 million or whatever it is. Right. And, I've had people, approach me, and we're not huge by any stretch, but like I have amazing relationships though, like with vendors and suppliers and like on a national level. Like I'm very, very fortunate in the relationships that I have. But everybody is so focused on that number and then thinking that they're going to get out, like you said before. And I have people, not approach me, but talk to me about stuff. And I'm like, here's the thing. Like, I want to grow my business. I want to grow my company. There are certain levels and like financial things that I want to be able to do with it. But I don't have the desire to not be part of it anymore. Right. Like I always I want to be part of
of what's happening, not only inside of my organization, but if I'm in a larger organization, I want to, like, I have years of experience in doing this. And like, why wouldn't I want to be part of that? What am I just going to, like you said, what am I just going to go golf all fucking day? Like
I
golf a lot, but but I'm going to get tired of that too. Like I like doing stuff. I like innovating. I like coming up with new ideas. I like leading people, right? Like I love seeing my people that are working around me make more money than they ever made before because, you know, we had a good storm or we put in a new system or a process that allowed them to do more things or whatever. Like that's the stuff that gets me excited. And so as I go down this journey and this path of having conversations, because I know that we have for our size of company, like we run a very tight ship, right? And I had somebody come in and look at our business recently, a friend of mine who's like a operations guy. And he came in and like went through our books and like went through our people and went through all of our stuff. And he was like, fuck. He was like, you're set up pretty goddamn well. And I was like,
that'd be rewarding.
Yeah. Cause like I was expecting him to give me this big report of like, man, these are all the things that you got to fucking fix. Right. Yeah. And he came in and he's like, you're like top 3 of everybody I've consulted with. And he's awesome. Like, and for your size of company, he's like, you're the best that I've seen for your size. Right. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And that made me feel really good, but it also gave me the confidence to be like, maybe I can have these conversations right down the road because I've got the systems in place. I've got the processes. I've got amazing people that I don't want to leave. Like I want to be part of that growth model, you know, that goes with it. Yeah. And I think that that's the, I don't want to say that's the trick. That's the hard thing to find is somebody else that has that same mindset of that to be able to partner with down the road.
Yeah. You know,
does that make sense? The way I said that?
It does. And it's really the right thing to think about. You know, when I did that seminar, if you will, on how to sell your business, I tell people, I'm like, the first thing before you get into this process, you have to ask yourself a really difficult question that tends to be hard for males and it tends to be hard for A-type, owners. And that's like, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? Because if you're not sure, you can go down the wrong path and make a bad decision.
Sure.
And I got a really good buddy out in the Northwest in a different but related industry. And I always ask him that. And he's always like, he's an ex-hockey guy. And I swear he's going to like beat the shit out of me because he's like tired. And finally he came around. He's like, you were exactly right. I got to know that because he may want to, go down this path. And I'm like, if I have a model I show at my thing, and it's basically like there's 3 things to consider. Number 1, what's the upfront multiple that you're going to get? Mm-hmm. Number 2, what do you think you're going to get on the retrade when that business sells?
Right.
Different groups are going to do better than others. There's going to be winners and losers.
Yep.
And then the third component is, who do you want to hang out with for the next 5, 10, 20 years?
That's my biggest one. That's my biggest one.
Well, exactly. And in my model, I would say that the first column is 25% of the weighting. What's the initial multiple? Yep. The second column of what do you think you're going to get in a turn? 3 times, 5 times, 10, whatever it may be.
Yep.
That's probably 25%. And to me, 50% is who are you hanging out with? Like, what kind of people are you around?
Yeah.
Because that's your life,
Right.
But if you just said, Jim, I'm just out. I'm moving to Florida. I don't care. These people are all leaving. It could be 100% in the first category. Right. But you got to know like what's important to you. So if you, like you said, I want to grow something, that's hugely important because I'm sure I know a number of guys that have sold their business, made a ton of money, and they're just miserable. They made a bad decision.
Yeah.
And that really, it pains me because I know how hard it is to build that business. I've been there. Right. I've sold and worked with thousands of guys that have built businesses. And when they do the wrong thing like that, it's a shame. And so, we try to tell people like, here's who we are. We're going to be extremely transparent. If it works for you, this could be awesome. And if it doesn't, let me at least get you in the right direction so you don't make a mistake. I really feel that way.
Yeah.
It's kind of like entering into a relationship with false pretense. Yeah. It never ends well.
No.
It never ends well.
But I feel like in this conversation, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you're probably an anomaly in this space.
I think we stand out. Yeah, I do. And I don't know if it's because I was on the manufacturing side so long and these distributors were my,
Yeah.
and I just know this industry well, and I love it, man. I got into this thing at a fucking fraternity car wash.
But I think it comes down to people, though. Is what I think that the way that you're explaining it to me, you sound like the anomaly to me, or the difference, the different type of entity, in the fact that the money is all important, but like the relationship side of it is just as important, right?
Sure.
And being honest and transparent and having real conversations and not playing the tricks and the games that a lot of these guys will play in, even Joe and I were having conversations and, explaining to me how, somebody else will come in and show you this huge multiplier and then get you on an LOI and then fuck you up and down the road. So at the end, you end up way down here and you're not getting what you would have got from where you could have been before. And now you look like an asshole if you break the LOI and you got a black mark against you. And like those kind of games are, I think,
it's constantly played. You got to remember these private equity guys are freaking smart dudes.
Right.
They went to the best schools.
Right.
They have the
and we're a bunch of fucking roofers that started companies.
We're roofers.
Yeah.
So to think
like we're kind of out of our depth a little bit.
That's right. And just like roofers and home improvement, there's ethical ones and there's non-ethical ones.
Right.
And by the way, it's the same way with private equity. There's great ethical private and there's some that aren't. And if they want to be the bad way and they're brilliant, they know all the games.
Yeah, and it's really easy for them to do it.
Relatively easy. And so you got to be really careful and do your homework. Like sometimes guys they'll buy your company and they'll say, hey, we're buying your company. I'll make up a number at $1,500 a share is what we value it.
Yep.
And then when you go to buy in, you're buying in at $3,000 a share because they mark the stock up, and you're like, well, but they don't really talk to you about that. So really, the $5 million you bought in really isn't $5 million; it's really 2.5 in that particular example.
So what is a tip that you would have for people that to be able to avoid that? Because the answer obviously it's do your homework and do your due diligence, but like, who should people be bringing in to consult with?
Well, you should have an advisor when you're going into this, and there's a couple different. Some guys have an advisor.
Do you know Brian Franco?
I know the name. I don't know.
Meritage Partners?
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
But there's brokers that just sell your business to everybody. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a guy
advisor
or a woman who's been through this process and can advise you through the process, that has done other deals and they understand private equity in advance.
Got it.
Very important to have that person up front. It's very important to have an attorney on your team that's done private equity deals,
which the advisor should be bringing in or advising you on who to hire for that.
And make sure you do a little bit of homework and that they've done this. You don't want to hire a divorce attorney to do like, I'm an attorney. It's my buddy. It was
just like the policyholder that hires his buddy to do his insurance claim.
So have somebody with experience that's done this, and then talk to your friends in the industry who have done it.
Yeah.
What mistakes did you make? What would you have done differently? That sort of stuff.
Strip your ego down to be able to ask those questions.
Talk to the distributors and manufacturers. I tell them all the time, talk to the manufacturers, distributors, and be like, you see them all.
Yeah.
Who should I be talking to?
Right.
Who should I avoid?
Yeah.
And quietly, they'll tell you. Publicly, they're going to be Switzerland, right? But privately, they're going to say,
I can get Carver to tell me privately. I can get Bloom to tell me privately. Bloom's coming in tomorrow.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. It's been 4 years, by the way. We've been trying to get on the show together.
Jesus, almost 30 some years.
Really?
I've known Greg,
Greg,
he was a customer of mine.
Really?
When I was at Siding, he was Allied.
Yeah. He was one of the first people when I started this podcast. I gave him one of the first bracelets that we made.
Yeah.
He wore that thing for 3 years. I swear to God, he wore the Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out bracelet for 3 years, and one day it broke. And he took a picture of it and sent it to me. He was like, it broke. And I'm like, oh my God. And I just found a bag I didn't know that I had. And so I brought him with me today just so I could give Greg a new one tomorrow. He'll probably never wear it again, but yeah.
He probably will.
He probably will.
By the way, ask Greg about a ski trip to Pennsylvania. He's been to my ski house.
Oh, has he?
Yeah.
That's
with
hilarious.
His wife and daughter,
That's awesome. Okay, so lawyer, make sure you have a lawyer, have an advisor, and then is there another, why did I think there was a third person on that team that you should always have?
I would say your financial advisor, but also a professional accountant that's understands accrual accounting.
Right.
Because every private equity, for almost every,
if you're not doing accrual?
So if you're cash basis, what happens is we acquire you. We have to put you on,
Right.
GAAP or accrual accounting.
Right.
And so you need to know what that means.
Right.
'Cause sometimes guys will be like, oh, I did X amount of revenue and made all this money. And it's like, no, because you took all the revenue on that job for $1 million, but you haven't performed the work yet.
Right.
This year, you haven't paid for the materials, so it's not all profit. You
Right.
know? So they have to understand how to job costs.
Can that screw you or help you? Well, I know it wouldn't help you because they figure out a way to make it go the other way. But can that screw you up on your number if you're on cash?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you
And are there ways to fix it when you're looking at it to be able to not?
Yeah, I mean, then I would say the number one reason deals don't get done is the owner, just like selling a home or anything. He or she perceives the value much greater than reality, right?
Sure.
So my business is worth 10 million, and people look at it and go, it's worth 5 million, or
Right.
whatever the case may be. So because a lot of times it's that cash.
Yes.
Accounting, and you're going to go through, I don't care who you go with, what private equity, you're going to go through a due diligence process.
Yep.
And
Which I've heard is just fucking horrible.
Oh, it's like a colonoscopy daily, except with your finances. It's
Right.
a pain in the ass. And we're like as user-friendly as it goes, and it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
It just is. Their companies are given tens of millions of dollars. They want to know what this business is about, and is it
Right.
legit, and are the books right? And, so they're going to do their homework on it. But
Right.
Going through that from a cash to accrual up front, at least understanding what it is.
Yeah.
And this way, what happens, like if you don't have an advisor and you think you made whatever, 4 million in EBITDA, and after they convert, it's really not 4, it's 3.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're all pissed. I'm getting screwed. If you have an advisor that's been through this, they're going to look at you and go, Eric, this is legit.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't really 4 million. It really is 3, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
That advisor can help guide you through that and also be the intermediary back
Yeah.
and forth. So, and my partner and I play that role because he understands the financial side. And obviously I've run a couple $100 million business myself, but we help these guys. And our deal is, look, we want to get you the best deal possible, but it's also got to be fair to the other members that we brought on.
Right.
We don't want to overpay.
Right.
For a business. And so, we have to tell these guys what their real true worth is. And
Sure.
One of the things I like about our group is we've structured a lot of different deals. So what's really important to you might not be as important to me. You might be at a rocket ship going like this and you're like, I don't want to sell yet. I want to wait till I
Right.
get here. Well, that's fine. You can wait till you get here. Or maybe you could go with some people that might pay you up front and then give you an earn out down the road. Right.
Right.
And the other thing is, has that private equity company turned yet? Because if you come in after the turn, they've already turned once. It's not going to be as lucrative if you got in under the turn.
Got it. Yeah.
Typically, most private equity companies, their goal is to hold businesses 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
We've told our guys up front, that's probably where we are.
Yeah.
We're in year 2. We grew probably faster than we anticipated.
What happens if you get in at year 4 though?
Well, we'll probably turn around year 4, right?
Yeah.
And so what we found when we went to this SRS summit is they're kind of like, look, if you can sell before you hit 100 million in EBITDA, there's a pretty good pool of people that want to buy businesses. If you get over 100 million in EBITDA, the pool shrinks. So our goal is to kind of do this before that, but also to integrate. And our goal isn't to just flip it one time, make a bunch of money, and hey, we made a bunch of money, let's go party. We want to do it again, like SRS, and so that's why we built the corporate infrastructure, went with ERP, CRM, all those sort of things. So if you get in now and you reinvest that 25% before the turn, you're going to make a bunch of money on the turn.
Right.
If you got in,
Does it matter when you get in that?
it could. If you got in early, you're going to make a little bit more than if
More.
you got a little later because they value the stock once a year.
Got
type
it.
of thing.
Got it.
But
Yeah,
you're
okay.
still going to make a bunch of money. Even
Yeah.
if you got in like right before the end, you're probably going to double that money.
Gotcha.
If it's working right for the
Yeah,
private
yeah.
equity.
Right.
Now, if you got in after the turn, so then you didn't get that.
Right.
Now you got to build it up for the next one. So, and if you look at SRS, they did 3 and then the final turn.
Yeah.
And you'd look after the first one and go like, well, they sold, they were, I don't even know, $2 billion and
Yeah.
AEA owned them. And man, that's it. They did it again with Berkshire, and then they did it again with Leonard Green. So they did it 3 times.
Wow.
So it's never too late if you're with the right group.
If you're with the right group.
And
yeah.
if they built a true platform that's
Yeah.
growing. And again, I saw it in manufacturing, where there were 19 vinyl siding manufacturers, then there was like 3,
Yeah.
4. You know, same thing in roofing. There was a bazillion, Bird, and you name them, they were all in. Now there's, very few. Distribution, right? We just sat through that ECA. You probably saw the rankings, and the guy's like, man, the service level is unbelievable from these distributors. Well, guess what? There's 3 major ones.
Right.
They all got to be good or they're not going to survive.
They're not going to survive,
right?
yeah.
And when I was selling to distribution, when I was a manufacturer, we had like 30, 40, 50 distributors.
Right.
They didn't all service the same way. I can assure you of that.
No.
So the game gets more professional and harder and harder as it goes on. And in that distribution roll up, some of them succeeded. Beacon. SRS, ABC. And there was plenty of others. I won't mention all the names, but know them that didn't succeed. And that same thing's going to happen here. You're going to have some groups that are really successful and keep growing. And some that maybe get one turn, make a little bit of money, and then they get swallowed up by someone because they're really not a good model.
So to wrap up, what do you think this industry with PE and roofing looks like in 5 years?
I would say in 5 years, there will be at least 5 companies over $2 billion in roofing, maybe some bigger. They'll still be the small guys. There'll still be young guys coming up and starting businesses. I think some of those mid-sized guys it's going to be much more challenging to generate leads, to get labor, to do all the things. It's just harder, So I think you'll see that change, and I think you'll see the level of service to the consumer go up significantly. The price of poker will go up. You'll have to be better. Just like now, if you want to open up a distribution business in Texas, you probably can. But you better be pretty damn good if you're going to compete with those guys.
Right.
It's not the same as it was 20 years ago. I think that's what you're going to see in the roofing.
Yeah, you'd have to be
You're going to have.
That's a really good analogy though, because you'd have to be really fucking good.
Oh yeah,
because you couldn't even get all of the things that everybody. You know what I mean? I can call Greg or Mike and be like, I need this. Like, cool, got it. And to not be able to.
And it's funny, my guys, when I was a manufacturer, they used to be like, well, we can't sell so-and-so in this,
right.
That. And they guys would get all upset. And I'm like, look at guys, I got news for you, man. We would tell guys, don't promote Crane Board. Don't promote Crane. Promote your brand and, use us, but promote your brand.
Right.
Because guess what? If ABC calls and they're a $50 million customer and they're opening up in that town and you hung your hat exclusively on XYZ distributor, the manufacturer looks at it and goes, 50 million, this guy's giving me $1 million, ABC, you're open. It's not a hard decision that was being made by these guys. And so I always told them, promote your local brand. Don't tie on to even a manufacturer like Elk Roofing Shingles, right? Imagine if you were a business, you built everything. We're Elk, and then they get acquired.
Right.
And you're like, whoa, I'm kind of screwed. Well, you didn't build your brand. You built a manufacturing brand. And we always told people, don't do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Jim, thank you. I know you probably haven't seen any of these episodes, but what we always do at the end of them as we wrap up is I always know that either we started going down a rabbit hole and or we started talking about something and then I fucking veer off because I squirrel or whatever and we didn't finish something, or you were coming into this going, man, I hope we get to talk about this a little bit. And so the last couple of minutes, I always throw the floor back to the guest to be able to make sure that anything we didn't wrap up, you can, or something you want to make sure that, the audience hears before you leave is landed.
Yeah. I mean, have fun, man. Life's short, right? I'm 61 now, so I know I got a short runway, in front of me, shorter than I did when I got in. And it's like, I want to be around good people and have fun, and that's what I would encourage people in this business. People that are happy and are with winners, right? They perform better, right? People that are not, don't, and so I think it's hugely important, and the other thing is, I know in your questionnaire, you're like, what drives you nuts? I don't even remember what the question was in advance, but it was like, just seek to understand someone else's point of view before you're like, that guy's an asshole or I don't like him. Like, you got a point of view, some reason you drew that point of view. I'd like to hear about it. At least I can learn something. Yeah. Even if I completely disagree with you. Yeah. I can learn something. And
God, you did say that. And I was going to bring that up. I'm glad you did. Empathy, I mean, is what it is at the end of the day. Right. And that's one of the core tenets of what I speak about when I do keynotes is I have this team method I talk about when we're building a culture inside of your company. And it's based on trust, empathy, authenticity, and meaning. And empathy is the one that always, I feel like, gets people
because of the nature of the world today and how divided everybody is and how contentious everybody is with everything. Nobody ever tries to see anything from a different point of view. I can completely disagree with you and think you're batshit fucking crazy, right? But I could still be like, why do you think that? Like, let's have a conversation about it. Like, that'd be really cool. And nobody does that anymore. And so it is like an extreme breath of fresh air when I do have a conversation with somebody when they're like, are we thinking about it from other people's perspective? I'm like, holy shit, you're doing that too? Like, thank you. Because that's missing. That's really missing in the world today.
Well, and you were talking about like, it seems like we seem different or whatever.
Yeah.
And to me, that's it. We have a different conversation with guys.
Yeah.
It's like, and maybe we're a good fit. Maybe we're not. Let's have a real conversation. You're going to know exactly who we are and what we're about. And if you like it, awesome. If you don't, at least you know where we are. And let me point you in the best direction I know how. Because there's other good, we're not the only good PE firm. There's other ones that are great too. But I think we're the best.
But that's the way to do business. That's how everybody should do business, right? I mean, I've done that my whole life where people have called me and be like, can you help me with this? And I'm like, I cannot help you with that, but I know somebody that can. Like, why don't, like, people don't do that as often. A lot of times are like, oh, I actually don't know how to, but you know what? I bet I could make some money off of them if I told them that I knew how to do that, right? Like somebody calls me like, do you pour driveways? No, I don't. Yeah, I bet I could find a sub that pours fucking driveways and I can go pour. I will fuck that driveway up to no end, right? And I'll get terrible reviews. People will hate me all because I was going to try to make 30% on a fucking driveway that I shouldn't have been pouring in the first place, right? So I appreciate you saying that because people don't talk about that enough. And if that's truly how you guys do business, then like you guys are fucking like top notch above everybody else, because I think that is missing. And I think that you are very different in that. And I would beg to say I haven't met anybody in this world yet so far that I've been able to have that same conversation with. And so I appreciate it very much.
Thanks.
Yeah. So Jim, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having the place warm too.
Yeah. Right. Oh my God. It's so cold. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. If you didn't get anything from that, I don't know what the fuck's wrong with you. That was an amazing conversation. Thank you to our sponsors, to SMA Support Services. Love you fucking guys. If you need anything, if you need back-end support, admin support, reach out to SMA Support Services. If you're looking for a group of men to hold you accountable, and like Jim was talking about, be around good people, because when you're around good people, you raise up and do better things. Check out CCM, the Cult Culture Movement. We have a couple group calls a month, and my buddy Joe is in that group with me. And then Exhale Underwater Mastermind Group. We're planning our third trip here coming up in the next probably 6 months or so. So if you are a scuba diver or want to be a scuba diver, reach out and apply. And that is very much an apply, and we'll see. But we're looking to add amazing people to that group as well. So again, everybody, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. We'll see you on the next episode. And remember, everybody, to be authentic or get the fuck out.
Authentic. Get the fuck out if you can't be authentic. Get the fuck out if you can't be authentic. Yeah.